Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Kohaloyam La, Adonai Yahweh, Ba'ashem Shah Malak Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, peace, citation, hope for elect. Habayah Malak Dawadah, the house of King David, and to the fusion of faces that look like these heathen nations, but it goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the word your holy chosen seed line, Shalom. And the title of this video is going to be Esau is destroying this earth. But I might add on to the title. But that's the title I have in mind for right now. And I have a scripture before I go into like the presentation of what I did in my class. Since I had a presentation, I had to do slides, and I did it all that same night, and I finished it, and it was all about air pollution, and I'm pretty sure, it's going to be edifying. I don't want to I hope it edifies you, Akim. It teaches you something, some things maybe new, that you might learn about it, this topic, some new phrases, maybe new words, but, it's basically just to show you how this devil Esau is destroying this earth with the technology that he's been given, and the resources that he's been given, and he could use different resources. He could find a cleaner solution, a much better solution to this, to make this earth like a to make the quality of air better, and to make the quality of the land better. But nah, Esau just want to destroy the earth because he's a devil that the Bible speaks of. That's why it says this in Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covers the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Well, I'm just going to go into the part of how earth is given into the hand of the wicked. And it says, like, in the scripture, let me see. They say, when the righteous, in Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. And it says in Proverbs 28:15, as a roaring lion and a raging bear, so is a wicked ruler over the poor people. All right, and I'm going to go to this presentation that I did in my class right now. Okay, so this is the presentation that I did in one of my global, I think it's called, let me see, Global Perspective. Yeah, this is basically a global perspectives class. And it's usually a class like in college that it's like a course where you focusing on like worldly matters, and you're focusing on like worldly problems, human rights and all this other shit like that, and basically when with this devil Esau, he takes away all those rights, and he always want to find a blame for it. Esau is the type of person where he's the one causing the problems, and he wants to blame people, and he wants to blame it on, the middle class and the poor people. He want to find different groups of people to blame it on. But ultimately, who we should be blaming is the upper elites, But nah, people don't want to think outside the box, And there's this, there's some posts I saw on social media where, I know it's going a little bit off topic, but it kind of connects to this idea how when you shake a box, when you put red ants and black ants in a box, and let's say like how they have those boxes where they have ants inside of it, and it's like a crate, and it's called like a they usually have like ants living inside of it. People use it as projects, stuff like that. Yeah, you put them inside those tanks, and then you shake up the tank, and then they'll have both of the ants to fight against each other, and it will show you that's how people are. People that stupid, they don't want to look at who's the one causing this. Like, they don't want to think outside the box, but they want to think that it's the people that's in the same condition as them that's causing the problem, And that's how a lot of these stupid ass people think. And that's the reason why Esau is able to divide and conquer them. And it says this, like, human activities that causes air pollution, which is fuel combustion from motor vehicles, and heat and power generation, industrial facilities, and Basically, all the technology that Esau has basically causes most of the air pollution in general because it's all powered by fossil fuels. Even the power plants, you know, he has it mostly charged by fossil fuels. And fossil fuels, what it does, it generates what you call it? It burns like chemicals in the air, and it generates like electricity in return. But it pollutes the whole air as we speak. So all those greenhouse gases that's being burnt from the fossil fuels is going to be emitted in the atmosphere, and the emission of those gases get injected into the clouds, and that's what causes like the clouds to become, acidic, and it causes acid rain. And it says like populations that suffer air pollution the most, which would be people of color, elderly residents, and children with uncontrolled asthma, and people living in poverty-stricken communities. And children in general will be affected by it because as they're growing, they're inhaling you know, they're inhaling all that acidic gas that's in the air, that air pollution. They're inhaling that shit, and that's what's gonna make them sick over time, you know. And they're growing up, and it's like, and old people, they rely on, mostly, they will usually have health problems when they get older, especially if they don't take care of their health. So it's like they're gonna suffer these things, and when you have sicknesses, it's gonna increase the sicknesses even more when you're around air pollution. So like if you're around areas with heavy traffic, you're gonna most likely be affected by air pollution. You know, when you're in city areas like mainly New York City, you know. And it says like what causes acid rain or acid deposition. So basically, burning fossil fuels generate electricity, which is like I said, chemicals, which is sodium oxide and nitrogen oxide. That's just few to name. There's many more that and then it goes into the atmosphere from electric power generations, even from exhaust, and from cars, from vehicles, and there's a lot of things that lead up to it. But usually, like when you have factories, they burn fossil fuels, and all that shit goes into the air, and that's how it goes into the clouds. Because factories are much bigger, and they always keep producing. So, and it says like manufacturing, oil refineries, and other industries, and a small portion of SO2, which is sodium oxide and nitrogen oxide, that causes acid rain, is from natural sources such as volcanoes, and that's a small portion. Volcanoes, that's inevitable to avoid that, but for the most part, most of the air pollution, like it says, comes from the burning of fossil fuels, and that's what this devil Esau uses in his industries, because they say fossil fuels is cheaper. That's why it's mostly used as as a global energy consumption, but that's pretty much at the I'll get to that part. And it says how air pollution causes acid rain. Let me show you. Like it says, like when your factories burn fossil fuels to generate electricity and to produce heat, as the gas particles from the combustion of fuels are released into the air, it will cause acid rain, and the sulfuric and nitric acids form in the atmosphere, fall to the ground, mixed with rain, snow, fog, or hail. In other words, that is called like wet deposition, because that's a wet form of acid basically falling on the floor, and it will affect the whole ecosystem. Like in the cities, it will affect like the ground that we walk on. It will affect the plants and the trees. It will affect, let's say, the buildings that we go to, or the building that you see statues outside. When you have to see, when you talking about acid rain, that's what it does. So, and it says like forms of acid deposition. You have a dry form, which refers to acid particles that are dispersed and gas that are dispersed in the atmosphere and doesn't mix with moisture at all. So it sticks to the ground, plants, or other surfaces. So it stays absent from moisture. And then when it comes to wet deposition, it refers to acidic rain, fog, and snow, and hail as well. And both depositions can be carried by long distances by wind. So that's why it's a global problem, as you know, air pollution, because it could happen from one region to another, because wind travels. So, and let's just say smoke is a gas and it carries on by wind. and it goes into the clouds. And clouds are just water vapor. So when you're talking about like condensation phase, that's in science where you have the water vapor that's turned into to droplets of water, and then during the precipitation phase is when the rain begins to happen. That's when the water starts to drop, and that's what causes acid rain. You know, and it says acid deposition in wet and dry forms for it affects buildings and cars and dries and trees. It makes lakes acidic. You know. And it says like acid deposition in dry form can be inhaled by people and cause health problems in some people. You know, it says acid deposition effects on the city. So as you know, the Statue of Liberty, the Taj Mahal, and then the George Washington statue, it turned like a different color, and it changed over time because of acid rain. So you see, even though Esau has his own statues, like an idiot he is, it changed over time, the color, because, and it's deteriorating, and it's, depreciating, its value because of what Esau is doing to his own environment, what he's doing to the whole world as well. He's destroying his own kingdom with this acid deposition. And the effects on the cities is that it shows like when acid rain and dry acidic particles fall to the earth, the nitric and sulfuric acid that makes the particles acid can land on statues, buildings, and other man-made structures and damage their surfaces. The acidic particles corrode metal and cause paint and stone to deteriorate more quickly. They also dirty the surfaces of buildings and other structures such as monuments. The chemicals found in acid rain can paint to peel and stone statues to begin to appear old and worn down, which reduces their value and beauty. And it probably, like, since it does that to like statues and since it does that to buildings, you could jump to the conclusion of how it can mess up your car too over time. So that's how it is. All thanks to Esau's destructive way of fucking up the ecosystem and the society, all through acid rain, and acid deposition in general. But it also says like acid rain that seeps into the ground can dissolve nutrients such as magnesium and calcium that trees need to be healthy. So in other words, it will cause like malnutrition within plants, and that's what it will do. It will cause plants to lose their nutrition, and it will cause plants to become unhealthy as well. And that's why you see these plants look like they're dead. And that's what Esau is. They represent Esau, a valley of death right now, because that's what Esau is. That's how scriptures kind of refer to him, that he's not satisfied with, blood, and he's not satisfied with death, because this is what he does. And it says acid rain can also cause like aluminum to be released into the soil, which makes it difficult for trees to take up water. Air pollutants cause damage to leaf cuticles and can affect stomatal conductance. They can also have direct effects on photosynthetic systems, leaf longevity, and patterns of carbon allocation within plants. All this stuff that Esau does is like he's just trying to destroy the own world he lives in. And his own people got to suffer through it too. And let's go to that acid deposition effects on people. So it says in this picture, 7 million people die every year from air pollution. And look how much stuff it affects. It affects the heart, the head, which is your brain inside of it, and then even your respiratory system, your nervous system, your other organs in your body, and your reproductive system, and your skin as well, because it's gas that permeates through all that. So you got to think of it like that. There's the chemicals that's penetrating, that's permeating through your skin cells, through your pores, and it's going into your nose. It's going everywhere. Even when you inhaling the cigarette smell and all that shit. So like you're going through all this pollution, and Esau's defiling your body as a devil he already is. And not only that, I didn't even get to the part where, and I didn't put that in the presentation, where they have chemtrails spraying in the air. That's what they also doing as well. I didn't put that in the presentation though. So this is like an outside reference. They have what you call it, chemtrails that sprinkles in the air, which is like all types of metals, and that's basically causing you to you're breathing all that shit, and that's really harmful to your body. And yet niggas want to do is pick up cigarettes, Black and Milds, and smoke weed, which is defiling your body even more. So, and it shows you that air pollution like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides can cause respiratory diseases, heart diseases, lung cancer, or it can make these diseases worse. Wet acid particles get into people's lungs, which is the acid rain, and they can cause health problems or can make existing health problems worse. And acid rain does not have enough acid pH to burn human skin, so they can't really affect you directly. So it's more of an indirect effect that acid rain could do. Like, let's say it could affect the water that you drink. That's why usually you get a filter system. And as for me, I have like a Brita, filter from my, well, I have it's called Pure. It's like a Brita because it comes in a pitcher, and that's what I have. I put my sink water over it, and I have like a filter for my water. So when I serve myself water, it's filtered out, and I have like other extra filters to replace it when it's when it gets used up. So that's what I have. And then some people, what they do is they filter their bath water, like they when they take showers and stuff like that, they get a filter, but I don't have that. And they clean out their water so that they won't get sick. And then it shows you that in this presentation, specifically sulfur dioxide particles in the air can encourage chronic lung problems like asthma and bronchitis. Pollution exposure in Ureto was Utero was associated with increased risk of neurodevelopment delay, and exposure during childhood was associated with poor neurodevelopment outcomes in younger children, and disease and decreased academic achievement and neurocognitive performance in older children. In a study of 263 children ages 8 to 12, higher exposure to urban traffic pollution was linked to slower brain maturation. So people that live in urban areas where there's more traffic, this is what they're gonna be. This is what's bound to happen to them. They're gonna have these problems. This is why Jake be getting all. That's why we say Jake is all fucked up in his captivity, because this is one of the reasons why this devil Esau is really spraying chemicals in the air, and he's also having like air pollution, which is like he's burning non-renewable resources, which is causing more people to get affected by it. And he's even doing this to his own people. And it says like 4 studies investigating pre and post natal exposure to nitrogen dioxide and fine particulates showed an association with autism spectrum disorder. And all these diseases that this devil creates, all these diseases that he comes up with names of, they didn't find, like, why you think in the ancient world there was not that much of these diseases happening? Okay, you hear some diseases here and there, but now it's like you have thousands of more diseases being created, and then it's like you have the scientists coming up with different names, to sound like smartasses, to come up with these diseases and shit like that. And it's all thanks to Esau, how he's doing this to his, to the people that's living in this world, and even the animals themselves. And I love animals, and it's so sad to see that, nature and animals, as well as people, getting destroyed, all to this fucking devil. And it says acid deposition effects on animals. And once the acid rain soaks into the ground, the soil becomes unfit for habitat and living creatures. Experts agree that pollution affects animals in the same way it does humans. Yeah, because they have a heart, they breathe, and it kind of affects plants in the same way too, because they're all getting destroyed. They're all living creatures. But it's just that animals and humans, they have hearts and brains and stuff like that. And plants have, they have cells too, like us, so in a way they're living creatures, and they give off life, and as we do. And it says the pollution that animals inhale can accumulate in their tissues over time and cause damage to their organs, just like us. And not only do animals inhale harmful gases from pollution, but contaminants are also absorbed through the skin that come from food and water. Acid rain falls on shallow bodies of water causes pH levels to fluctuate, causing fish to relocate their native location, to have respiratory problems, and even die. Soft-bodied animals like amphibians absorb pollutants through their skin and are much more sensitive to decreased pH levels in the water. Birds spend more time in the open air and have higher breathing rate than humans, exposing themselves to greater levels of air pollution. So usually you'll see like some pictures of like factories that will give off their that will blow out that that smoke that's coming from their chimneys, and they will all that smoke that they're burning is that fossil fuels, that coal, oil, and the natural gas that they're burning in the air. And they will those birds will try to fly, and they will be exposed to it because they usually are in a higher altitude of air, so they're gonna catch on to that shit, and then they're gonna try to maybe fly around it, but it's like it's all dispersed in the air, so it's hard to like fly around something that's already infected, especially when you're talking about something when you're talking about air. And then it says studies have shown for birds with long-term exposure to pollution, there was reduced egg production and hatch and lung failure, inflammation, and reduced body size. So basically, like, and that's probably that probably could link up with like people, because people in the ancient world were much taller and much we was much stronger and much more athletic over back then. But it's like now it's like we became weaker over time because this fucking devil Esau is weakening us with his chemtrails. He's weakening us with his GMO food, with all the food, everything that he taints, and he mainly does it to our people so that our people could stay weaker because they all fucked up. We're already in these fleshly human bodies as already is, and he's trying to fuck us up even more. And I'm at the end of this presentation, and I'll bring up a couple more scriptures and maybe a few articles to skim through, depending on the time, because I'm not trying to make it that long. It says, how does air pollution cause climate change, which leads to global warming? Climate change can impact air quality, and conversely, air quality can impact climate change. And it says, emissions of pollutants into the air can result in changes to the climate. And O3 in the atmosphere warms the climate, while different components of particulate matter can have either warming or cooling effects on the climate. And it's mostly going to be warming effects. And it says, for example, like black carbon, a particulate pollutant from combustion, contributes to the warming of the earth, while particulate sulfates cool the earth's atmosphere. This process is known as global warming. And global warming is primarily caused by emissions of too much carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping gases in the atmosphere. These heat-trapping gases spread worldwide and remain in the atmosphere for decades to centuries. As greenhouse gases emissions from human activities increase, they build up in the atmosphere and warm the climate, leading to many other changes around the world. And they will say it's human activities. They'll act like, oh, it's all humans, it's all us. No, Esau, it's you, motherfucker. It's you fucking devils. You're the ones that's causing, you fucking so-called white people. Y'all causing all the pollution, and it's mainly you elites. Y'all causing the pollution. All y'all doing that shit. And that's the reason why a lot of y'all gonna get judged for that. And it says like effects of global warming and climate change: rising sea levels, increased ocean temperatures, and melting glaciers and ice caps all over the world. So in other words, you will find like a lot of since sea levels are rising, you will find a lot of polar bears. It's hard for them to find food, hard for like basically Arctic animals to live, and people that live in the Arctic, people that live in Arctic regions, they'll have a hard time, as well, because of this global warming shit going on. And it says more frequent and intense extreme weather events which include like bushfires, cyclones, droughts, and floods are becoming more frequent and more intense as a result of global warming. And oceans are warming, acidifying, which is lowering the pH level, and it's making the seas both warmer and more acidic. and warmer waters are bleaching coral reefs and driving stronger storms. And 1 in 6 species is at risk of extinction because of climate change. And reduced rainfall and increasingly severe droughts may lead to water shortages. And if a global warming is allowed to continue unchecked, Antarctica will soon pass a point of no return that could reduce the continent onto an ice-free mass for the first time in a more than 30 million years, which we know damn well they ain't gonna be no 30 million years. So, and it says primary global energy consumption 2019. And with these Esau trying to make it seem like it's not going to happen in the next thousands or millions of years. That's a fucking lie. Because the Lord did say in the scriptures, and I'll bring that out too, that if he don't come in time, no flesh shall be saved. Because no one is devil Esau. You got artificial intelligence out here. You got his technology out here. And what is this one of the commandments in the Georgia Guidestones? To maintain 500 million. That's how you know this man is a devil. He tries to mimic the Most High, but everything he does is on the left-hand side. Like, he has commandments on the left-hand side. He has his false miracles, which is technology, artificial intelligence on the left-hand side. This man's trying to be like the Most High, and he's not on that level. He will never be. And it says, like, the primary global energy consumption, which I stated earlier, was fossil fuels, which is coal, natural gas, and oil. And you add that up, 27 plus 24, and then plus 33, which is 84. So all that shit is, added up to, how much fossil fuels people use, more than renewable energy sources. So, and renewable energy sources will include, solar energy, wind power, and hydroelectric and geothermal. So geothermal, as you see, geo is referring to the earth, geo is referring to the earth, hydro is referring to water, and wind, obviously wind, the air, and then the solar is referring to the sun. So it says, like, human activities overloading our atmosphere with carbon dioxide and other global warming emissions. The reason why I said human is I'm not going to say, like, so-called white people doing this, because I don't want to sound racist or nothing, because I was just edifying the class on this. And then, considering that the majority of my school is mostly, Edomites, but there's a decent amount of Jakes there too. And it says the global warming emissions associated with renewable energy are minimal. Increasing the supply of renewable energy will allow us to replace carbon-intensive energy sources and significantly reduce U.S. global warming emissions. Wind, solar, and hydroelectric systems generate electricity with no associated air pollution emissions. Geothermal biomass systems emit some air pollutants, though total air emissions are generally much lower than those of coal and natural gas-fired power plants. So basically, I said those same two that I said in the other one. And then, and I said the renewable energy industry is more labor intensive, is because it helps, like, you bring more jobs to the market for people that need to for technicians that need to maintain the energy sources, the renewable energy sources, and need to fix it, constantly. As they need to probably come back to back to fix it, or to reinstall it, or to install new ones, So it will show you that, like, using more renewable energy sources can lower the prices of and demand for natural gas and coal by increasing competition and diversifying our energy supplies. So, yeah, and this is pretty much like showing you that when you use renewable energy sources, that decreases the amount of pollution as you're reusing. You see, and then that's how everything that's garbage pretty much could be used. There's even like a technology where they could turn waste into electric power, basically. So you see, like, it shows you, like, the reduce reuser cycle. Like, it shows you that you don't have to, like, have a whole bunch of landfills, a whole bunch of wastelands, and you don't have to have so much, like, garbage, within the you don't have to have so much garbage within cities and stuff like that, like having, like, so much, like, pollution, like physical pollution, like with solids and stuff, like, because you could already, they have technologies where you could use all that garbage and turn it into actual power. But nah, Esau don't want to do that. He want to destroy the earth. He want to make the earth like dirtier, and then what he want to do. He want to blame people for it. He want to say, oh, it's because of overpopulation. That's the reason why we need to reduce the population. Going to what Bill Gates was saying. So nothing but fucking devils. And before I go to the next page, these are about like my more excited. Pretty much used about, I think it was 14 articles, as far as I'm concerned, or 16, and they just went to a lot of, a lot of points, the good points that I put in that presentation, and I even wrote a paper about it, but I don't want to get into that right now for the sake of this video. Just want to get into like some articles and some scriptures. It says study finds a race gap in air pollution. Whites largely cause it. Blacks and Hispanics breathe it. You see, and this is in the U.S. today. It's showing you that Edomites are the ones that's causing it. And it's crazy. Like scriptures say that the Psalm 64 and I think it was verse 8, that their tongue shall fall upon themselves, and all them that see them shall flee. And it says the air that Americans breathe isn't equal. Blacks and Hispanics disproportionately breathe air that's been polluted by non-Hispanic whites, according to a study this new research quantifies for the first time the racial gap between who causes air pollution and who breathes it. Pollution is disproportionately caused by whites, but disproportionately inhaled by black and Hispanic minorities, the study said. And they forgot to include Native Americans, because you got some of them that live in the slums as well, and in the reservations. So it says poor air quality remains the largest environmental health risk in the United States. The study warns, in fact, with 100,000 deaths per year, more Americans die from air pollution than car crashes and murders combined. Even though minorities are contributing less to the overall problem of the air pollution, they are affected by it more. Is it fair I create more pollution? Somebody else is disproportionately affected by it. Let me see. Hill said that while the air in the U.S. has gotten cleaner in the past decade, pollution inequity has remained stubbornly high. And it shows you 93% of the world's kids breathe toxic, polluted air each day. You see? And it said blacks are exposed to about 56% more pollution than is caused by their consumption. For Hispanics, it is slightly higher, 63%. However, non-Hispanic whites experience a pollution advantage, meaning that they breathe about 70% less air pollution than whites cause. And the formula scientists use in their study is driven by disparities in the amount of goods and services that groups consume, and in the exposure to the results in pollution. On average, whites tend to consume more than minorities. It's because of wealth, Hill said. For example, the scientists found that whites spend more money on pollution-intensive goods and services than do blacks and Hispanics, which means they generate more pollution than the other groups do. Yeah, so basically, in other words, what they do is they spend more on products that causes the pollution than, blacks and Hispanics do. That's why most of the time, because usually when you find like Edomites, they're more likely to be business owners than Jake, on average, because they have the wealth, they have the money to do that shit, to flip, and then for the most part, what they want to do, fossil fuels is cheaper to use that to produce, energy, so they want to do that shit, and that's what kills Jake. And it tells you in other articles, like it's showing you right there, whites are mainly to blame for air pollution, but whites contribute more to air pollution. Minorities in the U.S. breathe in more air pollution caused by white people. Look at that. All this showing you that this is nothing but the devil we're talking about that's causing all this shit, which is Esau, the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan. And for anybody that's visual, here goes like a good picture showing you who emits the air pollution, which is like who causes it the most. It shows you that like Edomites cause it the most. Like you got Jake from the you know the black and Hispanics, so-called blacks and Hispanics, they cause less of the pollution. Cause I mean, the least what Jake do is smoke cigarettes and smoking. That's the least Jake do. So, and the air pollution that's inhaled the most is by, Jake from the Hispanic and the so-called black tribes, and then you got the Edomites that inhale it the least. But it's still fucked up because they still inhaling it too. You know, they still inhaling the pollution too. It's not like Esau's on another planet, not inhaling this shit that he's giving out. That's the thing about Esau. He's really sick. But it's like he does it to his own people too, because during the Industrial Revolution they had to they were doing a lot of like these you had a lot of poor Edomites that were farmers, and they were getting ruled by people that had money at the time, but the business owners, I mean, they didn't really care. They were had children to work. Children would probably have missing fingers or something like that. They would get cut up and stuff like that. They would get hurt. They had no safety working conditions, none of that shit. And the bosses were very abusive, and they didn't care about the mother working and the father working in the factories. And then you had the little children had to work in the factory. Sometimes they'll get hurt, or sometimes they'll get killed just working. No safety conditions at all. And you see, like, it show you like the negatives of the Industrial Revolution. I found it. It shows you like it was like it first began in Britain in the 18th century and took place throughout the centuries that followed. Its impacts and can still be seen in our lives today. As an event, the Industrial Revolution had both positive and negative impacts for society. Although there are several positives to the Industrial Revolution, there are also many other negative elements, including poor working conditions, poor living conditions, low wages, child labor, and pollution. One of the primary causes of the Industrial Revolution was the emergence of laissez-faire capitalism as an economic system. Laissez-faire capitalism is a highly individualistic ideology in which the government plays as a little role as possible in the economic decisions of a country. Historians often refer to the ideology of the Industrial Revolution as classic liberalism, since it included principles of laissez-faire capitalism while also still allowing basic individual rights. So basically what the laissez-faire did was, since the government will, basically they won't play that much of a role in the economic decisions, they had, people that were rich, like the upper rich class people, basically, they would be the ones that will, run to call the shots in their business and shit like that. Because as long as they have the money to invest in the business and shit like that, they're the ones that call the shots on their business. And they didn't really give too much of a fuck about how people were working in there and their working conditions back then. They were mad petty about it. And who were the most to suffer it? I mean, well, at the time, it was just, Edomites were pretty much suffering it, because they was just show you, like, in pictures, mostly of Edomites, children suffering that shit, and fathers, and, anyone that was basically considered as a low-level Edomite, the peons, the low-level, the poor ones. Yeah, so it says, as a result, this led to horrible working conditions for the people of the Industrial Revolution. For example, child labor was a common feature of the Industrial Revolution. But I want to go into like how it was polluted. You see, all that pollution pretty much started there, and you see the poor Edomites. And they were mostly miners back then, So, yeah, this is really just horrible. But I mean, this is not really to show you that I give two fucks about Esau or his people. Don't get me wrong, I don't care about them at all. That's their business, that's their problem. I'm just only caring about my people. But that's pretty much showing you what, they had to go through during the Industrial Revolution. So Esau's not only hurting our people, he's hurting his own people too, and it's still affecting them to this day. And it says in Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 3, an unwise king destroys his people, but through prudence of them that which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. So basically, Esau is destroying his own people with his destructive tactics, which is what? Polluting the whole world. And how does he do that? He does it by the air, not by only dumping, like, chemicals in the... Pretty much the air is already, like, doing everything. It's damaging everything, because, first of all, Esau is destroying the air, which is destroying the land. That is causing climate change, and it's causing global warming. And when he destroys the quality of the air, it's also affecting people's all that shit affects the inside of your organs. It affects your skin, the condition of your skin as well, the texture and all that shit. It plays air, air goes into, because it's carried on by wind and shit like that. So Esau is doing a lot to just destroy people. So, what you call it? And this is, and when you know a person that's like destructive like Esau, that's why it will show you, like, Ecclesiastes. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 10. I think it was verse 10 is, wait, nah. It's verse 16. It says, woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child and thy princes eat in the morning. And that's why you see, Esau, he's a fucking child. He's a child. This man is not, he's not a man, he's a fucking child. That's why King David even said it himself. He said they're full of children. He was telling the Most High in Psalm 17, verse 14, verse 13, he said to deliver him from the wicked, which is thy sword. And he said, from men which are thy hand, O Lord, or from men of the world, which have their portion in this life, and whose belly thou fillest thy head treasure. They're full of children, and leave the rest of the substance to their babes. So yeah, they're very destructive. Esau wasn't made to be a just ruler. He was made to be a wicked ruler. And scriptures show you that. What you call it? Let me see. I think it's in Revelation. Right? Mine probably was, yeah. And the nations were angry in thy wrath, which is come in the time of, in Revelations 11:18, and the time of the dead, and that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. So who's the one that destroys the earth? Esau. He's the one that destroys the earth. Scriptures say he's not satisfied. It said, an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find an opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. And it also shows you, like, he is also, like, it says Habakkuk 2:5. Yeah, also because he transgresses by wine. He's a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Yeah, and that's the thing. Esau, he's associated with death, because why you think a lot of these things are, taking place? Why you think he's destroying the earth as we already speak? He's destroying the air, the quality of air that we breathe, putting GMOs in the food. This devil just destroys everything. That's why our food is defiled. Because for one, the air is defiled. And even when you when you cook your food and it heats up, or when you have like radiators in your house, that causes air pollution on a small scale. Because for one, how is the home powered? Like what is the main electric usage? What type of energy sources we use to heat up our homes, to cook our food, to um, turn on our refrigerators, to light up the house. We're using basically fossil fuels, like, you know, and all that is by the use of fossil fuels. That's why this devil has us. That's why he's charging us like all this money, basically to just pay the bills and shit like that. Because this asshole named Thomas Edison, he found a way for people to pay for the light, and they said Nikola Tesla was the first one who came up with the light bulb. He made that like invention, but they said there was somebody before Nikola Tesla. I don't know, somebody that was that was pretty much like a so-called black man that made it before him. I don't know. There's always something, you know. But I'm not gonna get too much into that. But my main point is that Esau basically, what he does, he wants to basically find a way to keep people enslaved. That's why, this is why the Lord has to deliver us, from this devil. He has to, because if not, he already said it himself. It's just like he said, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Yahweh said it. Another scripture in Mark 13 and 20, verse 20. And they said that the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. You see that? And that's the reason, and it's showing you right there that the Lord is really shortening the days, because now you have this devil Esau destroying the air, destroying the land, destroying the quality of food. All that combined, everything is just so destroyed, And there's another scripture that shows, what you call it? I think it said, wait, Slovakia, wait, okay. It says, like in Ecclesiasticus 39:26, the principal things for the whole use of the man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, flour, of wheat, honey, milk, and blood of the grape, which is pretty much like represent like the wine, and oil and clothing. All these things are good to the godly. So to the sinners they are turned into evil. And who's the epitome of all sinners? Who's the border of wickedness, that says in Malachi, the first chapter, verse 4? It's mainly Esau. He is the border of wickedness. He's the epitome of wickedness. And all those things are turned to evil. Why? Because he taints it. He, like a child. What does children do? They taint food. They destroy food. Children, they have a destructive like nature. And that's basically what Esau is. Like, he's a fucking child, man. That's why, like, he doesn't, this is why I made the video saying that he's contrary to righteousness, because first of all, he doesn't keep a beard on his face. He shaves it off. And let's just say, even if he has one, like, the Amalekites, some of them will keep their beards. Okay, they're still like children because they don't deserve to have it, And another thing is, like, they don't follow the laws and commandments to the best of their ability. They don't try to do that shit out. They don't try to do that at all. They want to do their own shit. These people reject the Bible, and the Bible's not meant for them. So ultimately. And it tells you, like, Ecclesiasticus 39 and 25, for the good are good things created from the beginning, so evil things for sinners, and that's Esau for the most part. Evil things were pretty much meant for him, and he was meant to turn good things to evil. This is why the Lord has to destroy this devil and put this devil in captivity for 1,000 years. Because destroying the earth, man, that's really a hefty price you have to pay. And when he first goes into captivity, he's gonna bury the dead bodies. That's in Ezekiel, according to Ezekiel, I think it was the hold on, Slovakia, right? I think it was pretty much Ezekiel 39, verse 14, that they have to bury out the dead bodies. That's the first job that they're gonna do after the thermonuclear fire. And that's hits, the nuclear missiles hit, that's their first jobs that they're gonna do. They're gonna clean all the dead bodies, and they're gonna basically clean the earth back and put it back in its place. And they're gonna have so much chains on their neck and so much metal, on them while they're doing it at the same time. They're gonna clean the earth and put it back into and restore it back to its place. Yep, all the destruction that they did, how they say with children, they got cleanup time. They say clean up, everybody clean up. Yep, that's exactly what Esau finna do in the kingdom. He finna be cleaning up. He finna be restoring the earth back to its right course. Children had a time to destroy, now it's a time to clean up, motherfuckers. That's exactly what they're gonna do. And they're gonna clean up with chains on their fucking neck. Yep. With big old spiked yoke of iron on their neck. Yep. They're gonna be cleaning a lot. And they're gonna get whipped a lot too. Their ass beaten. The time they get, time to take a break is during the Sabbath. But hope I made that lesson edifying. Like to give all glory and praises honor to Adonai, but Yahweh, Bashim Shamalak, Yahushua, Bashim Kakadash, double honors of the apostles and the elders, great millstone, besides each and hope for that. Yahweh Bashim Yasharahla, Yam Adawam, Yam Abad Babal, Shalom.